Hello and welcome to Quest Recapped. Today, we will be going through the 2005 stop-motion animated film Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. In the peaceful Toddington Hall live the townspeople in harmony. But with the annual giant vegetable competition just around the corner, they are having difficulties keeping the vegetable-gobbling rabbits off their garden. However, they do not wish the violence of killing these rabbits. So, here comes the vital role of the duo, Wallace and his brave pet dog, Gromit, in providing the townspeople the human pest control service as anti-pesto. Gromit himself is also partaking in the competition with his giant cucumber, which is kept in a secure glasshouse. Every home is equipped with a security alert system that notifies occupants of the presence of tiny intruders, and the anti-pesto will arrive at the site within no time to take care of the problem. All the rabbits are collected in the basement of Wallace's house and are properly fed by Gromit. Not only the captured rabbits, but also Wallace's breakfast is taken care of by this four-legged assistant. Since the basement is running out of space, Wallace shows Gromit his latest inventions, the Mind Manipulation-O-Matic and Bunvac 6000. It is just perfect timing that Lady Toddington calls the anti-pesto to seek their services for the major infestation by several rabbits. Before they arrive, Lady Toddington receives an unexpected guest. It is Victor Quatermain, who has a crush on Lady Toddington for her wealth. He suggests that he would take care of their little burrower culprits by killing them. Looking at the number of rabbits jumping in Lady Toddington's field, Wallace signals Gromit of using Bunvac, which would suck all the rabbits into its chamber all at once. So, before Victor could hurt even one rabbit, all the rabbits get sucked into the device. Once they bring all the rabbits back to their basement, Wallace decides to put his Mind Manipulation-O-Matic to test for rabbit rehabilitation. He claims that after brainwashing the rabbits into not destroying the vegetable, they can be released. Therefore, he connects the machine to himself and repeats the chanting of vegetables being bad. The Manipulation-O-Matic seems to be working, but being excited, he accidentally kicks the lever of the machine into a different option. One of the bunnies gets sucked out of the chamber and gets connected with Wallace's brain directly, which causes Wallace to hop like a rabbit. And on his command, Gromit turns off the machine before any harm. To test their experiment, that rabbit is presented with a carrot, but the rabbit rejects the offered vegetable. So Wallace declares that particular rabbit to be the first reformed rabbit and places it into a separate cage and names it Hutch. That night, after the townspeople have gone to sleep, something goes rampant, destroying the people's vegetables, and even anti-pesto's traps are deemed to be ineffective. The alarm goes off at the anti-pesto's side. However, because of a slight mistake, they were not woken up. And only the next morning, they come to find out about the vegetable carnage. And during the town meeting, the residents demand an explanation from them for their absence during urgency. Amidst the heated discussion about the identity of that vegetable destroyer, the vicar, Reverend Clement Hedges, tells the resident that they are being judged for their sin. The sinful act of forcing vegetables to grow beyond their natural size. And on top of that, they are being punished with the appearance of the legendary were-rabbit. Victor's suggestion for dealing with the monster is by killing it. However, Lady Toddington asks people to give anti-pesto one more chance to take care of the problem in a humane way. And with this tactic, Wallace plans to catch the were-rabbit with a big trap. To lure the were-rabbit, anti-pesto drives around the town with the movable life-size female rabbit marionette controlled by Gromit. Wallace does not consider the size of it while entering the tunnel, which results in it getting slammed and detached from their van. Now, leaving Gromit alone in the van, Wallace goes to retrieve the female rabbit on the other side of the tunnel. Gromit then spots the huge fluffy rabbit causing havoc in the town. He has no option but to follow it himself. The lasso released from the van gets the rabbit, but the mass difference certainly is advantageous to the rabbit, which enables it to drag the van into the huge rabbit hole. With this, Gromit misses the chance to capture the rabbit, but when he comes out of the rabbit hole the next morning, he is surprised to find himself in the garden of his own house. He then notices the big muddy footprints entering the house. And as soon as he enters, Wallace starts shouting at him for running off on his own the previous night. But, ignoring that, he continues to follow the footprints that lead them to the basement. They see that all the other bunnies are shivering with fear and signal them to look at the adjacent cage. Soon, they discover a large sleeping rabbit within the broken cage and figure out that the monster causing trouble is none other than their Hutch. Wallace also narrows down his observation and concludes that when the moon appears, it causes Hutch to undergo a hideous transformation. But the good thing is that they have captured the real culprit as promised to Lady Toddington. And leaving Hutch under the care of Gromit, he goes to tell Lady Toddington all about it. Gromit begins his work of creating a bigger and more secure cage for the Hutch while Wallace is out. When he comes out of the basement after making the cage, he discovers that the muddy footprints do not end in the basement but the trail continues upstairs and ends in Wallace's room. Gromit then slowly opens the door and is horrified by the sight of half-eaten vegetables on Wallace's bed and the floor. The real vegetable raving monster is identified to be Wallace himself. Hence, he drives as fast as he can to Lady Toddington's place. Meanwhile, after learning that the beast has been captured, Lady Toddington takes Wallace to her secret garden, the sanctum of vegetables on the highest floor of her house. And soon, Gromit arrives and sees them there. As the day turns dark, Wallace begins to show signs of turning into the Were-Rabbit. But Wallace almost loses control when Lady Toddington shows him her delicious-looking giant carrot. However, right on time, Gromit turns on the sprinklers and stops him. On the way back home, Gromit and Wallace see a sign of a blocked road, diverting them to the forest. Even deep inside the forest, their path is obstructed by a fallen tree trunk. They have been cornered by the jealous Victor who saw their van parked in front of Lady Toddington's house a while ago. And it turns out that he wants to teach Wallace a good lesson for trying to steal his woman. But now that the sun is completely set, the moon has shown itself. With the moonlight shining on him, Wallace transforms into the Were-Rabbit. Clearing the fallen tree trunk, the Were-Rabbit runs off and Gromit chases after it. Victor, on the other hand, goes to the vicar to ask how he could kill the Were-Rabbit. The vicar enlightens him with the fact that the Were-Rabbit can only be killed by the 24-karat gold bullet and gives him 3 gold bullets. Next, Wallace with his furry long rabbit ears comes for breakfast when Gromit shows him the mirror and tries to tell him that he is the beast they have been searching for. When Wallace does not believe him, he takes him to the basement to show that Hutch has turned into a human-like behaving rabbit, to be exact, behaving and talking like Wallace himself. And the day has finally come, the day of the giant vegetable competition. As Lady Toddington is seeing over the things for the event, all the townspeople have gathered to inform her that the beast has once again shown itself. They also inform her that it is not safe to bring out their giant vegetables. Since it seems like the anti-pesto lied about capturing the beast, Lady Toddington could no longer defend them. Back in the house, Wallace and Gromit sit to brainstorm, hoping to repair the mind manipulation-o-matic, but with the rabbity brain, Wallace couldn't concentrate on work. If not the rabbity Wallace, the humane Hutch can definitely fix the machine. Just then, Lady Toddington comes to visit Wallace. She expresses her disappointment in him and informs him that the decision of shooting the beast has been made by the townspeople. While she is in the middle of confessing her feelings for him, Wallace suddenly begins transforming into a Were-Rabbit. He can't show her his hideous side, so, without further ado, he sends her back. Now, this is just a perfect opportunity that Victor has been waiting for. With Victor right in front of the doorstep, Gromit could not drag the Were-Rabbit Wallace out of the back door, so he puts on the giant Lady Rabbit costume and lures Wallace out. Then, Victor loads the first gold bullet and shoots his gun. When he approaches closer to the fluffy mass, it is just the rabbit costume worn by Gromit, and Wallace has already fled in the direction of vegetable competition. Then, Victor and his dog, Philip, lock Gromit in the anti-pesto cage and go to haunt Wallace. Meanwhile, hearing the gunshot, the townspeople think that Victor has successfully shot the Were-Rabbit and starts celebrating. When Victor arrives at the event, all the people welcome him heartily. But later, when the news of Were-Rabbit being alive gets out, the people panic and chaos arises. And to control the crowd, Victor fires a bullet in the air, wasting his second bullet. With his quick thinking, Gromit activates the installed security system that forces Hutch to end up in the van. As the van reverses to get out of the garage, it collapses into the cage and this helps to free Gromit. But before they go to rescue Wallace, Gromit takes his precious cucumber with him. And with it, he successfully lures Wallace, who is just about to attack a resident's prize vegetable at the event site, before Victor could shoot him with the last bullet. However, the last bullet is also wasted when the nearby man grabs his gun and makes an attempt to shoot Wallace. Now, the only thing Victor sees is the golden carrot that is the grand prize of the competition. He wants to use it as a bullet to kill the were-rabbit, but Lady Toddington does not let him. Wallace stops on his way when he hears those two arguing. He then comes to the stage and hits Victor. Then, he grabs Lady Toddington, but in the eyes of the townspeople, it is the were-rabbit grabbing the lady. At this point, everyone grabs whatever they can and charges at the were-rabbit. So to escape them, Wallace leaps to the high building and Lady Toddington screams for help. Victor loads the golden carrot on his gun and climbs to the building. But Wallace detaches the pipe that Victor is climbing on and sends him off to the ground. Once Wallace takes Lady Toddington to her secret garden at the top of her house, he shows her the hand gesture that Wallace used to do for her. She immediately comes to know that the were-rabbit is Wallace. By then, Victor also arrives there. She tries to stop him. But right at that moment, he accidentally slips that he has known all along that Wallace is the were-rabbit. So, Lady Toddington sprays the pansy spray at him and shouts at Wallace to run away. While Wallace is being chased by Victor, Philip is causing hindrance to Gromit as well. Now, Philip and Gromit end up having a fight in the dogfight airplane. However, Gromit loses him and comes to Wallace's rescue just when the golden carrot fired from Victor's gun is just about to hit Wallace. And instead, the carrot ends up hitting the airplane. Now, they could not celebrate their victory as Gromit's plane comes crashing down. So in order to save Gromit, Wallace jumps to grab him. And both of them fall into the cheese tent. Wallace's fluffy body protects Gromit, but the fall results in an unconscious Wallace. Also, Lady Toddington hits Victor with her giant carrot and causes him to fall on the top of the van, inside the same cheese tent. Gromit quickly puts the Lady Rabbit's costume on the subconscious Victor and makes him walk out of the tent. Now, the people think that Victor is the trouble-causing beast and chase after him. Victor asks Philip to help him, but the dog fails to recognize its own owner and bites him. This causes Victor to run and people chase him out of the town. Inside the tent, Wallace reverts back to his human form, but his consciousness does not return back. Meanwhile, Lady Toddington and the other bunnies cry at Wallace's death. After Gromit sees Hutch munching down the cheese, he takes the stinking Bishop cheese and waves it near Wallace's nose. Now, Wallace has always been crazy about cheese, and the smell of his favorite thing revives him back to life. And with this, Lady Toddington is also happy to see Wallace alive. Next, Lady Toddington awards Gromit the crooked golden carrot for his bravery. And later, she turns her house into a Toddington Hall bunny sanctuary where all the released bunnies can live freely, and even the oversized Hutch is free to live its life. We have come to the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Kindly like, subscribe, and share this video. If you also have thoughts you intend to share, kindly leave them in the comment section. See you in the next video.